יאומן לא חי בלי רבי נחמן.
So now, thank you everyone for coming.
We're starting. No, I didn't.
All right. As everybody already knows, there is a plethora of how to date sites. There's advice without limit. It's too much to list even to go through in a single in a single lesson. So I've tapped into a little bit of my own personal experience, my studies, reading different texts, and through my experience that I've dealt with young singles that I work with. So even if a person were to study all of these books and go through all of these experiences and hear all of these things, it still couldn't prepare him or her fully for all situations. So what I tried to do here was to bring some of the most important concepts according to Hazal, while at the same time keeping in mind the challenges of modern society, the different things that we come across today. So this is my little drop in the bucket of how to go about dating. Now let's talk about dating in the olden days. How did it take place? Generally, as everyone knows, in the olden days, the parents would choose the person's wife and husband, and that was it. It was a haskama. It was some sort of a deal between the fathers. They would make a deal, and the boy and the girl would go ahead and get married. Or he would choose a wife based on the family. This is exactly what Resh Lakish did. He was chosen actually by his brother-in-law, and he said, listen, I see that you have so much capability in learning Torah. Why don't you come and I'll let you go ahead and marry my sister? And that was it. That's all he needed to know. That this man that just spoke with me, he's a good person, therefore I trust that his sister will also be good. This is how they made marriages in the olden days. And today also, a lot of people in the more religious circles, mostly in the Hasidic circle, this is exactly how they make their marriage contracts. They go ahead and find out beforehand the parents whom they want to marry. The kids see each other a little bit, and if there's nothing extraordinarily out of whack, they go ahead and get married. And it worked out. Why did it work out? I have one of the teachers of one of my sons who came up to me and told me about his daughter. He's a chassid, and he came to me and he said, listen, this is how we do it today. I went and I met the father, we spoke, and we had the kids come into the room. The parents on one side of the room, the kids go to the other side of the room, they speak for a little bit, and that's it. They write the marriage contract, not the marriage contract, but they write the details of the marriage down, and they go through with it, and that was it. And he says, you don't believe it. My daughter came to me and she told me that I don't believe it, Abba, you gave me a matana. This is the best gift that I could have possibly gotten, meaning that she was very, very happy with the marriage. And it happens, and it just so happens that these people that have these kinds of marriages, they actually last longer. So the question is, what is the secret to this marriage? The secret is the fact that they come with fewer expectations, they come with a lot of the same values, and they come from a close society. So they're not exposed to all the things that we are exposed in this society. They don't go and meet a lot of guys, the girls, and the guys don't meet a lot of girls. And when they meet, all they know is this girl that they've met, or this guy that they've met, and therefore they're able to make it work. And there's a lot of siyata dishmaya involved as well, meaning help from heaven. So these people, they're willing to work it out, and it works. Life is less materialistic for them, and they're willing to live with difficulties, and they work it out. They work through it. Expectations are lower, therefore it works out. Now for the rest of us, this is not the case. This is not how life works, because we're in the society that we're in, and we have all the billboards and the internets and the cell phones and everything else that goes along with it. But what's happened to this generation is, unfortunately, the generation is a little bit softer. It's a little bit more sensitive. Everything has to be instant, meaning what? That when I get married, everything has to be perfect immediately. And they're looking for perfection. When they want to find their mate, they're looking for the perfect person. And in Israel, they have this unbelievable program where you go into there and they have an infinite amount of different details about the marriage partner, where they come from, their parents' backgrounds, where their parents came from, all sorts of details, what they like, what they don't like, what kind of tablecloths they use, you name it, they have it on here. is this a good thing or is this not a good thing? In my personal opinion, I don't think this is the proper way to get married. I met a young man. He was, I think, about 27 at the time, and he wasn't married yet. He came from a very religious family. And what happens is that when you go through this system and you're looking for this exact perfect girl, you're going to pass up a lot of good girls. So this is the kind of society that we come from, that everything has to be perfect. And we have to understand that that's not going to be true. And when you have all these different customs and all these different details and all these different values getting mixed together, it doesn't make it easy. You have the different rabbis who have different opinions. My rabbi holds this, her rabbi holds that. Their parents, their community leaders, their shadchanim. So people don't know what's truly important in life. So what we're here to do today is to try to hone it down. Let's figure out what's important in life. But before we do that, when you want to go get married, what are the first things that you should do? People forget about the spiritual side of things. That a person needs merit. A person to be, you see, marbe, but what? Bezechuyot. He has to try to maximize his zechuyot. He has to maximize his merits in order to be able to get married. Because in essence, that's truly what gets a person married. So now let's think to ourselves how we can maximize these merits. If we have any issues with anyone, whether today or in the past, that's something that definitely needs to be taken care of. Who knows who we've hurt in the past? If we hurt someone in the past and they held it to their heart and they hold a grudge against us, heaven forbid, that can be something that's mashpia, that has an effect on our marriage. That can be something that has an effect on, our business or anything else that we do in life. So these things are something that we need to sit down before we want to get married and think about it, think through it. Is there something in the past that I've done to somebody that might have hurt them, that they might be holding a grudge? Who knows what it could be? It could be that we teased someone who was in school. We didn't behave nicely towards someone the way they would have liked us. And it could be that some people are just sensitive. And only because of their own sensitivities, we weren't aware of it and they hold a grudge. So this is something that has to be taken care of. Sit down and think to yourselves, is there someone in the past that I might have hurt in one way or another that could possibly be preventing me, that they help by having a grudge against me in whatever it is, in whatever situation it is in my life. And once we're able to take care of that, we'll see a lot of things open up in our lives. That's certainly one thing. It could be that you even meet the person who you're supposed to get married to. But what happens? The besheret, let's say. You meet your besheret. What happens? All of a sudden, some detail falls in the middle and everything goes off the track. So think about all the people that one might have hurt, and even inadvertently, to make amends with them. And once this is done, a person's going to be clean. Nothing on the slate, and don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry. Find this person and go up to them, say, listen, I know, we had a relation in the past, and I might have said things that to have hurt you. Please forgive me. And they'll say, no, there's nothing to it. Say, really, I know I did whatever it was. If there's anything else that I can do to make it up to you, please let me know. That's number one. That's ben adam lachavero. Ben adam lamachom. There's also teshuvah. We're young. We grew up in societies that are not al pi Torah, and we learned things and did things that aren't 100% proper. So this is what requires teshuvah from our side, meaning that we have to look inside and look at our own midot and characteristics and see what we did in our past that wasn't right. Once we're able to do teshuvah and take care of these sins that we've done in the past, then we'll see a lot of things open up in life, whether it's in business, whether it's in personal relationships, whether it's in shidduchim. A lot of these things come in the way and hold up the proper shidduch from happening. And as the Zohar says, a person, when he wants to get married, he might even be able to find his shidduch. But what happens? Bogedet bo. She rebels against him. Why? Because of the sins that he's had in the past. So there's the time of Shuvavim, there is the time during Elul, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. There are many, many different times throughout the year that are Mesugal, that are very, very opportune times to fix ourselves. Right now we're in the last week of Shuvavim. So this is definitely a time that a person next week that we can spend working on ourselves and taking care of these personal sins towards Hashem that we need to take care of. And this will also help on the spiritual level to be able to find our shidduch, and not only find them, even if we found them, to be able to get married to them. So these two things, finding out what we've done to others, finding out what we've done towards Hashem that is wrong, taking care of them, and fixing them. 2 first steps. Before anything else, before a person even goes out to Shat Chaim and anything else. Aside from that, we have something that's a mental process. We need to have mental preparedness to get married. What's this mental preparedness? You need to know what to look for in a maid. This is the most difficult thing of all. Why? Because most people don't have a clue what marriage is going to be like. They don't know what are the most important traits in marriage. What are they thinking about? I saw this model on the billboard. I want my wife to look like that. Or what's she thinking about? She's thinking about, oh, you know what? Look at my friend. She got married to this rich guy. Now her life is so easy. She has 2 maids at home and everything's being taken care of. I want someone just like that. And maybe even they're not thinking about it. Maybe it's the parents that are thinking about it. They get involved in, unfortunately, and they want to push towards the son or the daughter somebody who is not proper. So these are things that a person needs to take into consideration and realize, what are the things that are going to make a successful marriage? What is it I'm really looking for in life? 50 years, 70 years down the line, what am I going to want to do with this person? I guarantee you, looks aren't going to be on the list. By the time a person gets to that age, it's all out the window. It could be even after 1 or 2 children, looks are going to be out the window. Really. I know people who have gotten married to very, very beautiful people, whether it's a wife or a husband. But the personality traits make it marami mavet. It makes it more bitter than death. Why? Because they didn't think to themselves that way. Besides this whole physical emotion and all the heat and all the hormones that are going through here, there's something else that's going to need to take me through the day in and day out of life. They just think to themselves, oh, this is love. They're looking for that spark. And dating always provides that spark. Why? They're holding hands and they're doing other things. And that's another thing that a person needs to realize, that before you start dating, you have to have this mental preparedness that when you go dating for marriage, you're not going to have any sort of contact with the opposite sex. The reason being that anytime we have contact with someone else, whether it's in business, whether it's in personal relationship, friends, family, whatever it is, you make a kesher, you make a contact with them with your neshama. The neshamot attached to one another. Now, if a person goes and has relationships with all sorts of guys or girls outside of marriage, things they shouldn't be doing outside of marriage, things that should be saved for marriage, for example, holding hands, and anything that goes beyond that, that does what? That creates a connection between that neshama and your neshama. So when a person wants to get married, there's this rubber band that this person who you were with 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, still has this rubber band attached to us, and when this new person tries to come in, what happens? They bounce off this rubber band. It's like a shield with oil on it. The arrows try to come in, they cannot get through, they slip off. So we have to be very careful. If you're going for marriage, make sure that you save that for after marriage. Do not have any sorts of contact with the opposite sex before marriage. It is vitally, vitally important. This is one of the points that most people forget. Not only that, people don't understand that even though, this might be the person. I know of a couple, I remember I was in college, a couple, they were going to get married, they were engaged, the wedding date was set. The night before the marriage, they slip up. They figured, hey, we're going to get married anyway. But what people don't realize is that even if you're going to get married, when something is done outside of the world of holiness, what happens? It creates problems. It creates negative forces that come and attack a person during marriage. So these things a person has to make sure he's prepared for. So now we're going to look for good midot. What does the Gemara say? It says, Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, Lo hayu yamim tovim leYisrael בחמישה עשר באב כחמישה עשר באב וכיום הכיפורים. We didn't have Yamim Tovim like Yom Kippur and the 15th of Av. שבהן בנות ישראל יוצאות בכלי לבן שאולין שלא לבייש את מי שאין לו. They would go and wear white clothes that was borrowed, so that people who are, the girls who are poor, they actually, would borrow from the richer girls. They actually had nice clothes to wear. כל הכלים טעונים תפילה, and they were all, ritually pure. ובנות ישראל יוצאות וחולות בכרמים, and the girls would go and dance together inside of the vineyards. What kind of dancing? I don't know if they were breakdancing, if they were dancing, with their hands held together. I don't know. Whatever kind of dancing it was they were doing. Uma hayu omrot. This is the important part. What were the girls saying? They said, Bahur, sana enecha u'emata borer lach. Says, boy, raise your eyes and be careful how you choose. Al titen enecha benoi ten enecha b'mishpacha. Don't put your eyes on beauty. Rather, put your eyes on the mishpacha, on the family. And they said, charm is all vanity and falseness. Beauty is all futile. A God-fearing woman, this is the only one that's going to be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and her deeds will praise her in the gates. Meaning that once you find a girl that has proper midot, this is all you need. Everything else will fall into place. Once you find a girl who has the proper midot, that's what you need to look for. So this is not only for guys looking for girls, this is also for girls looking for guys. Look for midot. This is the most important thing. Everything else is negotiable. Once she or he has the proper midot, you can expect that everything else will go well. Why? Because you'll be able to build your future with them. Whether the boy has money, whether the boy doesn't have money, as long as he has the proper midot, as long as he has the proper characteristics, you'll be able to get through everything together. The Gemara says that a man should look at a girl at least once before he marries her. As we mentioned, in the olden days, the marriages were prearranged, therefore the guy has not seen the girl before. It says, at least once before you marry her, take a look at her. Why? Because you might find something in her that is disgusting to you, and therefore you might come to divorce her immediately afterwards. Take a look at her beforehand, make sure she's okay to you, and then you can go and get married to her. But it's said only once, meaning that you don't need to gawk at her, and you don't need to go, beyond that. You don't need to see her, in a Miss America pageant, going through the bathing suit, whatever round it is. That's not how it needs to be. Look at her and see if she is beautiful to you. That's all it takes. Now, this physical attraction is an issue these days. Why? Because we're bombarded with ads, pictures of perfect girls or guys all around us. And these people that we see out there, they're less than 1% of society. 99% of the population does not match what we see in these ads. When we see a guy marry some beautiful girl, we assume that girls like this are available for everybody. Therefore, I want one too. I should get one too, right? I deserve one. Why does he only get one? I should also get one. And many good shidduchs are passed up as a result of this, because most guys, they don't realize that this is not something that's available for everybody. And they'll pass one girl, even though she has good midot, 2 girls, 3 girls, and then when they're older, and when age has crept up on them, and they see that, wait a second, these looks, it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's not all about looks. It's also about midot. And they look for girls that they went out with previously that had really good midot. And those girls are gone already. They're already married. And they're no longer available. So we have to be very careful not to look simply at what's on the outside. Same thing goes for girls. For girls, it might be looks. It also might be financial security. I need a guy who's got millions. Who says he's going to keep those millions? Who says that he's going to be rich forever? There's no guarantees in life. Same thing with looks. There are no guarantees. That's even a guarantee that it's not going to be there. Who says you're not going to find somebody more beautiful if you're going after looks? And that's what happens, right? Hollywood. They go out for beauty. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, boom, next one. 2, 3, 4. Elizabeth Taylor. How many husbands does she have? I think 7 husbands. The more you look for this, the more you'll find someone that is better looking. So be very careful. And also with wealth. There's no guarantee that wealth is going to stay. Not only that, the Gemara says that if a man goes and gets married for wealth, you can be sure that wealth will never come to him. Meaning that the girl is rich and he's expecting that the father, I really don't like the girl. Who cares? The guy says, I'll deal with it. The money's going to make up for it. This is not going to happen, the Gemara says. That if you're going to marry a girl for the money, the fact that her family has, you're not going to have money. And there are cases in which we know that this has happened. So what should a person do? He has to know himself on the inside. He has to do a little bit of heshbon nefesh. He has to know the hashkafot. He has to know the philosophy of life that he needs to have. Whether he wants to be modern, he wants to be Litvish, Sephardish, Hasidic, whatever it is, you need to find out where you stand in life, where you want to be in life, and how you're going to get from point A to point B. Once you know that, then you know you're prepared. Once you have a course in life, then you know that you're ready to get married. Until that point, when you meet the girl, how are you going to know if she's going to be the proper one for you? It says in Kohelet as follows. Umotze ani mar mimavet et haisha. And I find the woman to be more bitter than death. The way it says in Hebrew, umotze ani. And I find. Meaning, what do I find first? I find me. When a person is going after what his desires are, and he just looks, what is it that I need from the other person? It's also not going to go. Who says that you're a match? You have to make sure that whatever it is that you're looking for in the girl, that you have qualities that are going to match this girl. Because if you're looking for a girl who has X, Y qualities, and you yourself don't have those qualities, then how do you know that it's going to work out? There's no guarantee. Again, so now once we know where we want to be, once we know where we are and where we want to be, and how we want to get there, we have to make sure that the girl that we're going to go after matches those in a way that's going to be conducive for a good life. Meaning that you're both going in the same direction. You must have common goals. Part of this common goals should be a dedication to Torah. It doesn't make a difference how much this is. Everybody's on a different level. That I understand. Nobody's expecting that, a guy's going to be, able to spend 3 hours, 4 hours a day learning Torah. If they can do, wonderful. The people who are B'chorei Yeshiva and they want to go into a kollel life, fantastic. But for the rest of us who are normal people, what about us? They need to have a dedicated time for learning both Torah and Musar every day for the guy. And they need to have a Rav whom they go to. So what should the girl look at? Look at the Rav that this person has chosen. If this is the Rav that they've chosen, then you can expect that this is someone they're looking up to and this is what they're going to turn out to be like. Same thing for the guy. How do you know what she's going to turn out to be like? Obviously, the family is one. The Gemara says to look at the girl's brother, because that's something that you can expect your children to look like. Or you can also look at the girl's Rebbetzin. Whom does she admire? Does she admire Lady Gaga or does she admire Rebbetzin Heller?
Yeah.
It all depends. If she has somebody who is respectable and this is who her idol is, then you can expect that that's the course that she is going. And that's a course that you can expect 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. So again, this is what you need to look for. Is there dedication to the Torah and where is that focused exactly? Know your own goals that we mentioned, both short-term and long-term. Even if they're not realized, at least you have, when you converse with her and you discuss these eventually in the third date, fourth date, we're going to get to that eventually, then you'll be able to see what's important to you in life. Once you can tell what's important to you in life, you'll be able to see, is this going to be a match or is this not going to be a match? Is the goal that I have a 5-bedroom house? I have guys who've come to me many times to say, I went out with this girl, everything was perfect. She's telling me about how she has a goal of having a 5-bedroom house and having maids and this and that. And the other says, I'm not even there yet. Well, how am I going to be able to do this? And the shidduch breaks off. Is it realistic? Is it not realistic? Is the guy expecting that the girl is going to be, beautiful lady, what do they call a beauty queen until, she's 50, 60, 70 years old? Is that what you're expecting? Highly unlikely. You have to know that these things are not goals in and of themselves. Goals mean that you have something that you're shooting towards, that you want to see your kids go to a certain school. You want to see them accomplish certain things in life. Like a girl who comes and says, I want my girls to go, my girls and my boys, I want all of them to go to college. This is one of my goals. Okay, now you know what you're dealing with. If the guy comes and says, you know what, I want my kids to grow up in a Torah-dic environment, I want them to become Avrechei Kollel. He himself may not be in that direction, but you know that that's the direction he wants to take his kids in. If your goals match, if the girls and the guys' goals match in these things, you can be sure that there is something to shoot for in life. And even if they have difficulties and differences in other parts of life, because they want to achieve the same goal, they'll be able to make it through. A lot of difficulties of marriage can be pushed away simply because these people have common goals. Aside from this, you need to know personality traits. What kind of person do you like? Do you like someone who's shy? Do you like someone who's outgoing? Girls usually like guys who are outgoing. Guys like girls who are a little bit shy. Maybe the opposite. What's important to you? And you need to also know, do you have any common interests? If you have common interests, that's something that can also bind you. Maybe you like to go hiking. Maybe you like to go take trips to different parts of the world. Whatever it might be. These common interests also tend to be a glue. These are the things that we need to be looking for. Common goals, personality traits, and common interests. Don't look just at beauty and don't look just at money. So now, once you know all these things about yourself, you've already worked on yourself, you've worked on the difficulties you've had with other people, you've apologized, you've made your list of what you're looking for in life, where do you find the guys and girls? Are we supposed to go to bars? Are we supposed to go to shadchans? Are we supposed to go through the websites? Are we supposed to go to the Rabbi Brander? Where are we supposed to find these girls and guys?
No.
Who do we go to? We don't know. So now, any of these ways that a person takes, obviously the bars is not recommended, not the best place to be. Whether it's even allowed to be in a bar is a different question altogether. Likely not allowed. That's not a topic for this shiur. However, any way that you find the girl, you're eventually going to need to look at her midot. The example we're going to take right now is going through shadchanim. Nowadays, it wasn't common in my days when I was going out. You basically went to the shadchan, they said, what do you like, what don't you like? Here, I have a girl for you, go out with her. We never saw a picture. We never knew about, family. We knew very, very little. The shadchan, we trusted them. They said, this is a girl, I think it will be good for you. Go. And we went with minimal knowledge. No clue what the girl looks like and doesn't look like. No clue what the guy looks like and doesn't look like. Nowadays, you get a whole resume. To life goals, and I like this and I like that, and the person's supposed to sum up their entire personality and everything in one page. And not everybody's a good writer, so how do you know? Is it just that they're a bad writer? They just were in a bad mood. They just want to just finish this up just so they can get it out there. They put pictures that aren't always the best pictures of representing themselves. Sometimes the pictures are touched up, right? And they look better than the actual person. Sometimes the pictures look worse than the actual person. We don't know. So when you look at the resume, I highly recommend not to pay too much attention to the picture. It might be bad or it might be better than real. We already mentioned that. Look for commonalities. Look for things they say that, hone in on some of the things that you also hold to be important, but do not stress the things that you don't like. What you should do is when you find out a couple of things that you do like, go out and discover more about them as you go out. Like we mentioned, not everybody is a perfect writer. Therefore, a person who doesn't know how to express themselves on paper, you're not going to be able to understand whether this person is right for you or not. Maybe they're just not a good writer, but in every other way they might be perfect for you. Don't pass them up just because of that. And it's unlikely that you're going to be able to sum up an entire personality in one page. Imagine yourself trying to describe all your life work and everything that you've done and everything that you've experienced all in a single page. Is it going to go? It's not going to go. So be done l'chaf zechut and try judge them favorably. And if you find at least a few things that are possible to be worked out, go out with them. Give them a chance. If there is nothing horrendously wrong on the resume, go out at least once to see for yourself. And I know websites that say people who are, in the shidduch scene, who are recommending that whomever you are given as a shidduch, go out with them at least once, not only once, but twice. I don't know if people have the time for that, have the patience for that, but at least give them a chance at least once. So now we get to the actual night out. Obvious thing, dress your best. Some people, they say, okay, fine, dress your best. What if you had a tough day that day? So you have to make sure that you're ready and awake during the date. So have proper rest. Try to make sure that the day of the date, before the date, that you give yourself enough rest so that you know you're going to be able to on your best behavior. You're not like falling asleep and you're not bored and you're not whatever it is, so that she doesn't get a bad impression of you, or that he doesn't get a bad impression of you. Make sure that you have the proper clothing. That's the right way. You don't put on a leather jacket and jeans and go on a date. Depends on the kind of date, but generally these kinds of dates that are more formal, you want to show yourself in the best possible light. And the date, where should it be? There are very, very important issues of yihud, of being alone with a woman. These are halachot that are set in stone. A person has to make sure that he does not go any place that he is going to be alone. As far as the New York scene goes, people who come from yeshiva, what do? They travel out from, let's say, Lakewood to New York. Or from yeshiva in New York, from one part to the other. The girl goes on her train, he goes on his train, they meet up at the restaurant, they talk, whatever it is, and they go home, and that's it. This also brings up another important point. Are you allowed to go on on a date with more than one person, date more than one person at a time? Very, very important and common question. It all depends. There's no simple answer for this. If you're serious with somebody, then for sure you're not allowed to go out with anyone else. However, let's say a guy or a girl, they're visiting a city and they don't have enough money to go out there every week or every 2 weeks or every month or so even. What should they do? When the shadchan should set them up with multiple dates, and they can go on these multiple dates, one every day or twice a day, whatever it is that they can do, and then they can decide on this instance whether which one is better and which one is worse. As long as it's not serious and everybody understands that this is the situation, then it's okay. But if you're serious with somebody, you should not be dating anybody else. So as you mentioned, the dating should be done in a public setting. Not too much time should be spent in the car if you're going to pick up the girl in the car. There's no touching of any kind and no discussion of any sort of intimate topics. These things are sort of off limits. First and second date, what should you be doing during these dates? Are you going to hit the heavy topics on these dates? No, this is not the time to hit heavy topics. What you want to understand in the first and second date is, are we compatible personality-wise? Leave the goals and everything else for later. Just see if you guys can have a good time with each other. Are you willing to, are you a match as far as personalities go? Do you have similar interests? Talk about fun things that you've done in the past. Be upright. Be upbeat. Be happy. Show your good side on to them, and see if they can reciprocate. This is what's important, right? Both for the girl and for the guy. That's the first and second date. Now on the third date and on, then you can go and discuss the more serious topics. But at the same time, what should you be doing? You should be monitoring the other person's personality traits. Remember, this is what's most important. Don't let the other person's looks cloud your mind, because a person can see a girl who is very good looking, or a guy who is very good looking, or he has a good portfolio and a stock portfolio, and she's going to ignore all the other traits that make the marriage impossible. So make sure that you concentrate on their personality traits. When you become serious, don't expect that. And when you become serious, after many dates, you become serious and you want to go ahead and, move on to the next step of proposing or whatever it is, you should know what you see is what you get. Don't expect that she or he is going to change in any way once you get married. This is it. Don't come to the girl or to the guy and say, you know what, I like you, but this one thing, if you go ahead and change it, then the marriage is going to go through. It doesn't work that way. What you see is what you get. If you're expecting that the person is going to change, I'm sorry to say that the person is going to be very, very disappointed. It's very rare that a person can change something that they've worked on their entire lives, and it's not going to happen overnight. I know the story of Rabbi Akiva when he met Rahel, and she said to him, I want to marry you as long as you go and you dedicate your life to her. And he said, yes, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And what did he do as soon as he got married to her? He reneged on this. He says, wait a second, I gave up I was the richest, my father's the richest person in the entire land. I was going to be able to marry, all sorts of, very rich, or very, big Talmidei Chachamim, and I came and married you. He reneged. This is Rabbi Akiva who reneged. All the more so for the rest of us. Yes, afterwards, he went a little by little, started learning Torah, and he became a Torah giant, but this is not something that we can learn. In lomdim min ha'maaseh, you cannot come and expect that this is going to be the norm. This is the exception. When you get married, when you want to get married, make sure that you look at the person as they are. Can you accept this person 5 years, 10 years down the line exactly as they are now or not? If you can, then you can go further. But if you can't, if it's not something you can deal with, then this is not something you should go forward with. Don't let your mind get clouded by things that are not priorities. Money and good looks are not priorities. Again, I'm going to repeat this. Money and good looks are not priorities. These things will come and they will go. What will stay is their personality traits. So as we already mentioned, we need to make a list of things that are important to us. We need to know our goals and the personalities that we want to have. When we make this list, it can be a long list, but in the end, what we need to do is we need to hone it down to 3 to 5. These are your deal breakers. If she doesn't have these 3 to 5, characteristic traits, then I'm not going to marry her. If he doesn't have these 3 to 5 characteristic traits, then I'm not going to marry her. Why do we do this? Because the person needs to know themselves, what they can deal with and what they can't deal with. And again, if money and good looks are on this list, then you didn't make the right list. Go back to step 1. And when you're on the date, how do you get to know the other person? What's recommended is to ask open-ended questions, meaning not yes and no questions, but, I'll just give examples. These are not the questions you should ask, but just examples of what is an open-ended question. How do you want the house to look? Where do you see yourself in 50 years? What do you see as your daily lifestyle? This is past the 3rd and 4th date. How do you feel? How do you deal with difficult situations? These sorts of questions. Who do you go to when you have difficulty? These same sort of questions people get asked when they go on interviews for a job. These are the sorts of questions that you need to ask when you're on the date as well. Now, what about you realize that, okay, this person, I'm not interested in them, but hey, maybe I want to go out with them for fun. Are we allowed to go out with another person, whether it's a guy or a girl, for fun? Again, this is not something that's allowed. Why? Because you're lying to the other person and you're wasting their time. That they could be going and meeting other people, or that they don't make that emotional investment, because you never know how the other person is feeling. You may be thinking, okay, it's just for fun, and they might be thinking that this is all for real. And if you're tugging their emotional strings, then this is not something that is right. So finally, we have 2 steps to go. As always, a person needs to find someone to guide him through the process. It doesn't have to be a rabbi, it doesn't have to be a rebbetzin, it doesn't have to be a psychologist. If they are, that's fine. What it needs to be, for sure, is someone who has a good sense of who you are and shares your values. Because then they'll be able to guide you through the process. And it doesn't matter that once a person is very serious with somebody, they can marry them once, twice, 3 times. Marry them. They can go out with them multiple times. They can go out with them multiple times, 5 times, 10 times even. Why? Because they want to understand what the person's personality is like. Once you're comfortable with that, then you can move to the next process, which is the proposal and the marriage and so on and so forth. And let's say you find something you don't like in their personality. Let's say you find something that just doesn't jive, it doesn't feel right. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion. You have one person that you normally go to, but no person here is a Navi. And this idea that people go to, mekubalim, and there's Baruch Hashem, these days we've gone to such a high level that there's mekubalim about plenty, and they say, am I a match with her? And the guy, he looks at the names and he starts doing gematriot and he starts doing I don't know what, and he's like, I see that you guys are the perfect ones. I don't know. Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know about these things. But that's not the kind of person that you need to help you decide. What you need to do is you need to make sure that, by the way, there are mekubalim that are like this. They're very few and they're very rare. To find them is very difficult. If a person knows them, very good, give me their address too. I want to go to them as well. But for the most of us, for the majority of us, we don't find these people. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't get fooled. There are a lot of charlatans out there, and I know of personal experience of many people that I know who've gone through this, and it led to many different problems, not only in the marriage but in many other parts of their life. But Unless you know 100% sure that the person's the real deal, don't go for these things. Again, make sure you find somebody who has a good sense of who you are, shares your values, and has an understanding. And if you don't feel that that person is giving you information or giving you advice that fits you 100%, don't be afraid to get a second or a third opinion. What you should not do is go and ask your friends. Friends don't always have your best interest in mind. Person has to be very, very careful, because friends are not always experts in this area, and even though they have a good sense of who you are and they might share your values, they might not be the right ones to give you advice. And you yourself should not be giving other people advice either, unless you know what you're doing and you have experience in the matter. Now lastly, this is the last part. Tefillah, tears, teshuvah, and patience. Don't give up. Getting married is not going to be an easy process. It's not a numbers game where you can just, go once, twice, 10 times and you expect that it's going to work out. It's something that takes a long time. And I know the story of Rav Meir Eliyahu, very, very big tzaddik. He's a giant in the Sephardi world in Eretz Yisrael. He's a posek, he's a Talmid Chacham. And he had a very difficult time getting married. And this is after he became famous. He was already giving shiurim all over the world. He was being flown to give shiurim, and he was known, his name was known everywhere, and he still couldn't find the proper shidduch for many, many years. So if for someone at that level, it was so difficult to find this shidduch, then for the rest of us also, we can take comfort in the fact that yes, it does take time, and we have to be patient. And we don't give up. And he said in his shiurim, he says that the one thing that Hashem wanted from him was more tears and more tefillah. And teshuvah, of course, teshuvah, be patient. If you follow the advice that we've given here, obviously, I told you it's not going to be all-encompassing. It's a drop in the bucket out of all the other advice that everyone has heard. If you follow this advice, this will give you at least a standard base that I think is good for 90% of those people out in the dating world, that it's going to help them be able to find their mate and to be able to make that leap to get married. If anybody has any questions, we'll go and take questions now. Questions? Comments? All right. Thank you. Whoa, one second.
Recorded? I don't know if 5 minutes.
You don't want it recorded?
Yeah, record. It's okay. You do it then. Let's ask. What about asking parents, for example, let's say asking your parents for advice? Do you think, is that similar to your friends? They might not always.
It all depends, yes. It all depends. I mean, some parents are very good. Some parents you should follow their advice and some not. It all depends. Parents can always muddy the situation a lot, because the examples that I know of personally are parents who are either looking for money or looking for other things that bring up their status. They want to use their children as their way of getting up in the world and saying, look, my son is married to so-and-so, or my daughter is married to so-and-so, look how much money he has. That's not a proper way. If a parent is in that mindset, then it's not good. Sometimes parents have values that are not Torah values. For instance, the parents might say, you know what? I don't think that a guy who's a ger is proper for you. Why? There were so many gerim in Israel that were good. Why is that not a good? Why is that not a good thing? Why don't you look at the background of the person, see where they're holding? Sometimes they might say, it's because of money, whatever else it might be. When it's these sorts of advice that the parents are giving, I don't think they should be listened to. If they come and say, you know what, I saw this and this personality trait, let me tell you why I saw it and why I don't think it's a fit for you, that's something that you can listen to. But as far as these other things that are external, again, I don't think they should be listened to.
Well, you mentioned, people in the past you may have offended and hurt. Sometimes it's hard to remember or even find those people. So would it be accepted if you did a living amends, like treating people nicely in a certain situation that you may have not treated others nicely in that situation in the past? Does that count?
So if we can't find the people that we've offended or hurt in the past, what do we do? exactly what you said. Definitely a teshuvah process where if you find yourself in a similar situation, you don't repeat those offenses, and you also maybe train and teach other people not to do that. And also tefillah. If a person prays hard enough and he asks Hashem, please, if there is anybody that I've hurt or offended in the past, please help me find this person and make amends, Hashem will bring them towards you wherever you need them. If they haven't forgiven a person, they will come forward and a person will be given the opportunity to make amends. Dave?
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. I mean,
okay. You want us to turn off the camera?
Yeah. No, if I hear something like, for example, nah, I don't know yet.
Okay.
I think
Turn it off, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
ונחל נובע מכל חוכמה, בלי אומה לא חי, בזכות רבי